You remember the quiet before the storm. The world spun in blissful ignorance. People went to work and came home. They worried about bills and weekend plans. They had no idea a whisper was crossing the void. A message from a civilization long dead. It traveled for eons. A final, desperate warning. The signal arrived without fanfare. It wasn't a booming voice from the heavens. It was a faint pulse of energy, a cosmic ghost tapping on our planet's shoulder. Your team was the first to find it. At first, you thought it was a glitch, some strange echo from a distant pulsar. The pattern was too perfect, too intelligent. You spent weeks decoding the ancient message. The language was alien, based on mathematics and stellar physics. But the core meaning was terrifyingly clear. It spoke of a nomadic fleet, a swarm of world-sized ships. They did not come for conquest or diplomacy. They came to feed on the hearts of stars. The message called them the Star Eaters. It described how they would surround a sun, draining its energy until it was a cold, dark husk. The civilization that sent the warning was gone. Their star was dead. Their worlds were frozen rocks. They sent their last breath across the galaxy, a warning to anyone who might be next. You took the findings to the world leaders. The meeting was held in absolute secrecy. The information could have caused global panic. Imagine telling everyone their sun had an expiration date. And that date was approaching very fast. The leaders were silent for a long time. The weight of the revelation was crushing. There was no debate, only grim acceptance. Humanity had to prepare for the end, or it had to prepare for a fight. We chose to fight. We chose to stand against the coming darkness. It was a decision made in a quiet room, a choice that would shape our destiny, a promise to a dead civilization that their warning was not in vain. Thus began the Great Deception. To the public, everything was normal. Budgets for space exploration were quietly increased, citing research and asteroid defense. New orbital platforms were built, labeled as projects for star science. Nobody knew their true purpose. They were the eyes and ears of our defense. Behind the scenes, a different story unfolded. The brightest minds on Earth gathered. They worked on a single, massive project, a task deemed impossible by previous generations. We were going to build a weapon, a ship capable of defending our solar system, a titan to challenge the Star Eaters. It was humanity's greatest secret. You saw the plans yourself. They were breathtaking and terrifying. A vessel so large it would dwarf any city. A power source that mimicked a small star. The resources required were immense. Every nation contributed in silence. Old rivalries were set aside. The threat was too great for petty squabbles. We built our giant in the shadow of Jupiter. The gas giant's stormy atmosphere provided the perfect cover. Its immense magnetic field hid our energy signatures. Countless robotic drones and human crews worked there, assembling the ship piece by piece in high orbit. For decades you watched it take shape, a monument to our quiet defiance. The project was called Starbreaker, a name whispered only in the most secure channels. It was a gamble on a scale never seen before. We poured all our hope into that single vessel, hoping it would be enough, hoping we had enough time. The waiting was the hardest part. Generations were born and lived their lives, all while the secret grew in Jupiter's embrace. Then the day you always dreaded finally came. The long-range sensors screamed, a distortion in space-time at the edge of our system. They were here. The Star Eaters had arrived. They did not sneak in. They tore a hole in reality and emerged. A fleet of impossible scale. Dark, jagged ships that seemed to drink the light around them. They were a swarm of metal locusts. ready to devour our field of wheat. There were thousands of them, from small scout ships to colossal harvesters. They blotted out the distant stars, a new and terrible constellation in our sky. All our simulations, all our fears were now real. A message came from the lead vessel. It was not a negotiation. It was a simple command, an ultimatum delivered in a cold, synthetic voice. The voice translated into every language on Earth. It said, our sun was their property. We had one rotation to evacuate our system, or we would be purged along with our star. The world leaders asked for your final assessment. Was this a fight we could win? You looked at the image of the enemy fleet. Then you looked at the live feed from Jupiter. Our secret weapon, our one great hope. You told them what they needed to hear. You told them it was time to show our hand. The enemy fleet moved with arrogant slowness. They began to form a ring around the sun, positioning their harvester ships. They ignored the small blue planet. To them, you were nothing more than ants. A minor infestation to be cleansed. They had done this 1,000 times before. They expected no resistance. The leaders of Earth sent their reply. It was a simple, unified message. This star belongs to us, a statement of defiance that echoed in the void. The alien commander likely found it amusing, a quaint gesture from a doomed species. You imagined them laughing. They would not be laughing for long. Then you gave the command the world had been waiting for, the order that would change everything. From the swirling clouds of Jupiter, it began to rise, like a leviathan from the deep, a shape so colossal it blocked out the giant planet's stripes. Our hidden giant was waking up. The Star Eaters noticed the energy surge immediately. Their sensors must have been screaming, a power signature unlike anything they knew. It was coming from the direction of Jupiter, the gas giant they had dismissed. They sent scout ships to investigate. They were not prepared for what they would find. The great ship cleared Jupiter's atmosphere. Its metallic hull reflected the distant sunlight. It was a single, monolithic vessel, larger than any 10 of their ships combined. It was a moving mountain of armor and weapons. The scout ships stopped dead in their tracks. Their arrogant advance turned into a sudden halt. You watched the alien fleet's reaction. Their perfect formation wavered for the first time. The smaller ships pulled back toward the larger vessels. It was a clear sign of confusion, of alarm. They did not understand what they were seeing. Nothing in their long history of consumption had prepared them for this. This was not a planet of ants. This was a planet of titans. We called our ship the Behemoth, a fitting name for the largest creation in human history. It was less a ship and more a mobile fortress, designed for a single, terrible purpose: to protect our star from those who would devour it. The name was a promise and a threat. The Behemoth moved into the open. It positioned itself between the sun and the alien fleet, a lone guardian against an invading horde. Its sheer presence changed the battlefield. The cold confidence of the Star Eaters was broken, replaced by a cautious, wary assessment. They were facing an unknown, and the unknown was always dangerous. Its design was brutal and efficient. A massive, angular wedge pointed at the enemy, covered in armor plating thick enough to withstand a star's fury, dotted with weapon emplacements of staggering size. This was not a vessel for exploration or discovery. It was a tool of absolute stellar defense. We built it to break stars or anything that threatened ours. The alien commander was not a fool. It recognized the Behemoth as a serious threat, but it still underestimated us. It could not comprehend that a species like ours, so young, so fragile, could build such a thing. It saw our ship as a curiosity, a final, grand gesture before our extinction. A bigger shell to crack, but a shell nonetheless. You could feel the tension across the entire solar system. Every human with access to a screen was watching. They saw the dark fleet of the invaders, and they saw our single, shining champion. It was a moment of collective, breathless awe. The secret was out, and it was more magnificent than anyone could have imagined. Our great project was no longer a myth. The Behemoth was real. To prove their power, the aliens made a move, a demonstration of their casual cruelty. The enemy commander chose a target. Not Earth, that would be too quick. It chose our moon. A single, focused beam of energy shot from their command ship. It was a lance of pure, destructive force. The beam struck the lunar surface. There was no grand explosion at first, just a silent, terrifying glow. The rock and dust began to superheat. The moon started to melt from the inside out. You watched in horror as it turned cherry red. Cracks formed across its familiar face. Our silent, watchful neighbor was being murdered. Then, it shattered. The moon broke apart into 1,000,000 pieces. A new asteroid field created in an instant. The message was clear. We can do this to your world. We can break your planet as easily as we broke your moon. It was a display of power, meant to terrify us, meant to force our surrender. The people of Earth felt a collective gasp. The loss of the moon was a deep, physical blow, a scar carved into the night sky forever. It was an act of supreme arrogance. The Star Eaters believed this would break our will. They were wrong. It only hardened our resolve. They had crossed a line. Now there was no turning back. On the bridge of the Behemoth, there was no panic, only a cold, focused anger. The crew was professional. They had trained for this moment for years. The destruction of the moon was a tragedy. But it was also a tactical error by the enemy. It showed us the nature of their primary weapon. It gave us data. And data was something we could use. The alien commander expected a response, perhaps a desperate, futile attack, or a plea for mercy. It did not expect silence. The Behemoth just sat there, a silent, brooding giant in the void. It did not fire its weapons. It did not raise its shields. It simply waited. This unnerved the invaders more than any attack. Inside the Behemoth, a storm was brewing. The main reactor was spooling up to full power. Energy levels climbed to unimaginable heights. The hum was not just a sound. It was a vibration you could feel in your bones. Even watching from Earth, you felt it. A deep, resonant thrum that echoed in your soul. The giant was waking from its slumber. The main cannons began to glow. 2 immense channels running along the ship's spine. They filled with a light that was not white or blue. It was a color that had no name, a pure, raw energy drawn from the ship's core. The air around the Behemoth seemed to warp. Space itself was bending to its will. The alien commander grew impatient. The silence from the Earth ship was insulting. It ordered a squadron of its cruisers forward. Test their defenses, it commanded. Break that silent statue. The cruisers surged ahead, weapons charged and ready to fire. They were confident they could overwhelm the lone defender, a very serious miscalculation. You held your breath. The moment had arrived, the culmination of decades of secret work, the first test of humanity's greatest creation. The enemy cruisers closed the distance. They began firing their own energy weapons. The blasts splashed uselessly against the Behemoth's hull, like pebbles thrown against a mountain. Then the command was given. Fire. A single word that unleashed a torrent of power. The Behemoth did not fire a simple beam or bolt. It unleashed a wave of pure reality-altering energy. A lance of light erupted from its forward cannon. It moved faster than thought. A brilliant spear aimed at the heart of the enemy vanguard. The light was blinding. It outshone the sun itself for a moment. A streak of impossible brightness across the dark canvas of space. You had to shield your eyes, even from the view screen. It was not just light. It was a statement. A declaration of power that the universe would remember. Earth's first shot in an interstellar war. The enemy cruisers were directly in its path. They had no time to evade, no time to even process what was happening. One moment, they were there, a line of menacing warships. The next, they were simply gone, not blown apart or vaporized. They were erased from existence, wiped clean from the fabric of space-time. There was no debris, no lingering energy signature, just a clean, empty void where the vanguard had been. The beam continued onward for millions of miles, before finally dissipating into the cosmos, leaving a shimmering trail of stunned space in its wake, a scar of light that proved what had happened. Silence descended upon both sides. The crew of the Behemoth watched their sensors, confirming the kill with quiet professionalism. On Earth, people stared at their screens in disbelief. A wild cheer erupted across the planet, a single global roar of triumph and relief. We were not helpless. We had a sword, and it was sharper than anyone had dared to dream. The alien fleet was in disarray. The remaining ships of the first wave scrambled back. Their orderly formation was shattered, replaced by a panicked, chaotic retreat. The Star Eater commander was stunned into silence. It had never seen a weapon like that, a force that did not just destroy, but unmade. Aboard the alien command ship, a new feeling spread. It was an emotion their species had long forgotten, a sensation they inflicted on others but never felt themselves. It was a cold, creeping dread. It was the icy touch of genuine fear. They had come to our system expecting a feast. Instead, they had found a dragon. The commander stared at the empty space where its vanguard used to be. Its tactical displays showed nothing. The ships were not just destroyed, they were gone, as if they had never existed at all. This defied all known principles of star science. It was impossible. Yet, it had happened. This human weapon was not conventional. It did not operate on principles of energy or matter. It manipulated the very rules of the universe. The commander realized its terrible mistake. It had not just poked a strange animal. It had kicked a hornet's nest the size of a planet. And the hornets had a very, very big sting. You could almost feel their terror across the distance. Their arrogance had been their shield. Now that shield was shattered. They were facing a power they could not comprehend. A species they had dismissed as primitive now held a weapon that could rewrite reality. The hunter had suddenly become the hunted. The commander considered its options. Retreat was the logical choice, but its pride was wounded, and its curiosity was piqued. What other secrets did these humans hold? Could this have been a one-time superweapon? A single shot that drained all their power? It had to know. This hesitation would be its final undoing. The Behemoth was not a one-shot wonder. The energy levels within its core were already regenerating. The hum of its engines grew steady once more. The first shot was a statement. The next would be a sentence, a final judgment on the invaders who threatened our home. The crew prepared for the second strike. This time the target was chosen with care. Not the closest ships, but the most important one. The brain of the enemy fleet. The massive command vessel at the center of their formation. Taking it out would cripple their ability to coordinate. It would turn their organized fleet into a panicked mob. A mob we could then manage. The Behemoth shifted its position slightly. A slow, deliberate movement. Its main cannon began to glow again, the same impossible color filling the channel. But this time, the energy felt different, more focused, more intense. This was not a wide sweep to clear a path. This was a scalpel to cut out a heart. The alien commander saw the weapon charging. It screamed orders to its fleet. Fire everything. Do not let it shoot again. A storm of energy weapons converged on the Behemoth. Beams of red and green and blue light. They washed over the human ship like a colorful rain. And they did absolutely nothing. The armor did not even glow. The second shot was fired. It was faster than the first. A needle of pure light, thin and precise. It crossed the vast distance to the command ship in a heartbeat. It did not strike the hull. It phased through the outer layers of armor, as if they were not even there. It was aimed directly at the enemy's bridge. There was a silent flash from within the alien command ship. A brief, intense pulse of white light. Then, it went dark. Its engines died. Its weapon ports went cold. The colossal vessel just floated there, a dead hulk in the middle of its own fleet. The scalpel had done its work. The brain was gone. The remaining Star Eaters were now truly terrified. Their leader was dead. Their vanguard was erased. They were facing a foe beyond their understanding. The only thought left was survival. A single panicked instinct took over the entire fleet. Escape. They had to get away from this system, away from this impossible human weapon. The fleet turned as one. The harvesters, the cruisers, the support ships. They all pointed their engines toward the edge of the system. They began to accelerate, pushing their drives to the limit, desperate to open a rift in space-time and flee, to run back into the dark and never look back. They believed they could escape. They were mistaken once more. As the alien ships tried to engage their faster-than-light drives, nothing happened. The engines whined and strained, but the fabric of space refused to tear open. They were stuck, pinned in place like insects on a display board. Their escape route was cut off. But by what? They saw no visible barrier. You watched from the command center on Earth, a slow smile spreading across your face. The Behemoth had not even fired its main weapon again. This was something else, a secondary system that had been active all along. The final secret of our great ship, the ultimate trap for an arrogant foe. The Behemoth began to emit a low-frequency pulse, a wave of energy that rippled through the solar system. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a tool of immense gravitational power. The pulses were shaping the very curvature of space-time, creating a prison with invisible walls, a cage made of gravity itself. The enemy fleet was caught in a gravity well, a carefully constructed distortion of physics. The Behemoth had locked them in place. The harder they pushed their engines, the tighter the cage became. They were expending massive amounts of energy, but they were going nowhere. It was like trying to outrun the universe itself. A contest they could never win. The alien crews were in a state of total panic. Their ships were trapped. Their commander was dead. The silent, monstrous human ship just watched them. It was the ultimate power move. We had not just beaten them, we had captured them. The entire invading fleet was now our prisoner. It was a checkmate they never saw coming. This was the Behemoth's true purpose. Not just to destroy, but to control. To ensure that no threat to our sun could ever escape. We had built a warden for our solar system, a guardian with the power to cage stars, or in this case, a fleet that eats them. The irony was not lost on you. It was probably also not lost on our new guests. A new message was sent to the captured fleet, not from Earth's leaders this time, but from the Behemoth itself. A calm, commanding voice spoke. It explained their situation in simple terms. They were trapped. Their weapons were useless. Their attempt to consume our sun was over. Their old life was finished. But we were not like them. We did not offer extinction. We offered a new purpose. The message was clear. They were now the guardians of this star system. Their fleet would become our first line of defense, a permanent patrol against any future threats. The Star Eaters would become the Star Wardens. Their ships were powerful. Their knowledge of the galaxy was vast. We would not waste those resources. They came to our home as conquerors. They would now stay as protectors. It was a fitting turn of events, a punishment that served our needs perfectly. They would spend eternity guarding the one thing they craved most, a bright living star just out of their reach. The captured aliens had no choice but to accept. Their alternative was to be erased by the Behemoth's main cannon, or to be left in their gravity cage until their power failed. They accepted their new role. Their dark, jagged ships took up new positions, not as a ring of consumption, but as a shield of defense, under the watchful eye of the Behemoth. With the immediate threat handled, it was time for one last act. Humanity needed to send its own message, not a warning from a dead civilization, but a declaration from a living one, a message to the rest of the galaxy, a simple truth that would travel the star-born winds. The Behemoth turned its powerful transmitter to the cosmos. It broadcast our statement on all frequencies, to any listening ears in the vast expanse. The message was short and to the point. This is the Sol system. It is under our protection. All are welcome to pass in peace. But know this: if you come for our star, we will be waiting. The message carried with it the data of the battle, the energy signature of the Behemoth's cannon, the proof of the gravity cage. It was not a boast. It was a fact, a clear and undeniable demonstration of our power. We were a young species, but we were not to be trifled with. We were the wardens of our own home, and our watch had just begun. The universe now knew that the small blue world called Earth was the home of giants, and its sun would never be threatened again.